Hello everyone. So welcome to the next session in our Indian modern history course, and today we are starting with the theme 4, that is beginning of the modern nationalism. Now in this particular theme we will talk about, starting with the today's session, that the basic building blocks of the modern nationalism. Today we'll talk about development of education. In the next one we'll talk about the press. Next we'll talk about the nationalism. In that session only we'll talk about this nation and the state. And in the next turn we'll talk about the formation of the Indian National Congress, and then we'll move to the theme 5. Before starting the session, let us recall all the previous three themes that we have discussed. In the theme 1, we discussed about the historical context and the Europeans' arrival in India. How Europeans have arrived in India, how they have conquered the Europeans in general, and in Britain in particular. So how Europeans have came into India, and how the British ultimately get over the other Europeans, French, Danes, and all, and then how Europeans have went over the princely states in India, or different important powers in India, Mysore, Maratha, and the frontiers as well. Then in the next session, we talked about the administrative and the socio-economic policies of the Britishers. We've discussed starting with the governor generals. We established the chronology of the governor generals from where we understood, and then we understood the overarching socio-cultural policy, economic policy. We dealt in detail with the economic policy, then the socio-cultural policy. And we have realized that because of these policies, an Indian reaction is bound to come. They were expecting an Indian reaction because of such atrocious policies which have destroyed the lives, livelihoods, and the overall destiny of the millions of the Indians. And hence the Indian reaction was bound to follow. We have seen the reactions in terms of the immediate reactions, which can be seen in the forms of the different revolts. And second, we have seen the institutional or the reaction in the form of the socio-cultural sphere. Now today also, just continuing this theme only, the reaction, that is the fourth theme that we have to study, the rise of the modern nationalism, is nothing but the Indian reaction. Now, for example, in the starting of the course itself, we talked about that modern history can be divided into three parts. First, how the Europeans and especially the British have come into India and conquered the India, how they have consolidated their rule, and what the Indian reaction is. So now every story, every theme will revolve around these two: the works of the Britishers and the Indian reactions to it. Slowly, the reactions will change. Slowly, the governance patterns will change. For example, shifting from East India Company to the government of India, and subsequently the Indian reactions will also see change. Indian reactions earlier we have seen in the forms of the peasant revolts, sepoy revolts, civilian revolts. Then we have seen in the form of the socio-cultural reform movements. Now we will see in the form of the, not in today's session, but we will see in the form of the rise of the modern nationalism, formation of an institution, how press has played a very important role, and lastly, the formation of an all India organization, that is Indian National Congress. So this is the overarching idea with which we are going. It's good to have an overarching framework in which you can settle all these points, you know? So that makes it easy for us to understand all these things. Before starting that, let us discuss few questions which will help us to basically, that previous session we have not done any questions, so let us see a few questions. First one is, all the questions we have done, a few important in between informations I want to give you, some portion that have been skipped out, or some, for example, Ishwar Vidyasagar I have said, study from that particular video discussion. From there you will get all the information. And let's come to this. Who among the following were the founder of the Young Bengal movement in 1820s? In 1820s, who were the following of the founder of the Young Bengal movement? David Hare, Kesab Chandra Sen, Vivian Derizio, and Dwarka Nath Tagore. Very easy question. Pause the video and try to answer the question. It's a very easy answer. That is Henry Vivian Derizio, who was the teacher in the Hindu college, which was formed in 1817, and he was the teacher from 1826 to 31. Known as the Derosians, his follower known as the Derosians, and the ideas, very radical ideas within the reformist, and so radical that they were not said that they were not aligned with the times in which they were being thought of. Let us see next question. Who among the following gave the slogans "No religion, no caste, and no God for mankind"? Now, for example, I have not discussed this particular question. We have not discussed this particular reformer. But sometimes, in fact, this year UPSC framed one question, such questions, you will find such questions. For example, you don't know about these three. You don't know that who has said this. But yes, we have read in detail about Narayan Guru. We have read in detail about Raja Ram Mohan Roy, and we have read in detail about the Swami Dayanand. So sometimes you are given a questions from a very obscure, or let's say not very peripheral topic, but the options which are given to you may be very mainstream. For example, Narayan Guru, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Swami Dayanand, and Sadaran Ayappan. Let's say fourth one we have not read. But what you are expected to know? You are expected to know everything with respect to the mainstream reformers, let's say. You are expected to know their major code, their major work, and everything. So when you know their major work, you can eliminate, okay, Sri Narayan Guru won't be there. We have discussed his quote was one caste, one religion, one God. Ram Mohan Roy, no, he was not there. We have not read something like this. We have not read something like Dayanand. You know? Dayanand has also said, has not said this. So with the help of the elimination, we go to the fourth option, that is Sahadaran Ayappan. Now, so Sahadaran Ayappan was basically a follower of the Narayan Guru only. So Narayan Guru talked about one God, one religion, and one caste. And his call was, he changed the call of his Guru to no religion, no caste, and no God for the mankind. He was a social reformer, thinker, rationalist, journalist, politician from Kerala, vocal follower of the Sri Narayan Guru. He was associated with number of the events related to Kerala's reformation movement and organization of Misr Bhojana in Chennai in 1917. He founded Sadodarha Sangam, the journal Sahodharan, and was the founder editor of the magazine Yukti Vandi. So these are the few details that you need to just keep in mind. Even don't remember, but some of the things that you need to keep in mind. You don't have to remember this or cram these things. Even these things are more important from Plin's perspective. From the main perspective, just need to know the name and how is related to Narayan Guru. That's all. So the answer is Sahadaran Ayappan. Let's go to the next question. He was a principal of the Sanskrit College in Bengal. He raised his voice in the favor of the Widow Remarriage Act of 1855. As a government inspector of the school, he organized 35 girls' school. Who the above passage refer to which of the following social reformers? Debendranath Tagore, Ishwarchand Vidyasagar, Jagannath Shankar Seth, and Karandas Mulji. It's a very easy question because this is a direct answer, and the answer is, pause the and try the answer. It's Ishwarchand Vidyasagar. Now I hope you have made notes from the previous video that I have discussed with the question and the answer, and some of the details we will see today. So Ishwachand Vidyasagar was a great social scholar and a social reformer, dedicated his entire life to the cause of the social reform. In 1851, he became the principal of the Sanskrit College. The idea was that he wanted to make sure that the Sanskrit should be taught to the non-Brahmin school. Sanskrit should not remain exclusive to only the Brahmins. So this was his idea. Though he was a great Sanskrit scholar, his mind was open to the best in Western thought. So it is said that he was a happy blend. This is the line that I've used in that particular question. There was a happy blend of the Western and the Indian thought. He waged a long struggle in the favor of the widows, and finally, Widow Remarriage Act was passed. Some more details we'll see in the one of the questions that we'll discuss later on. So he was deeply interested in the education of the women. He organized 35 girls' school, many of which he ran his own expense. As a secretary to the Bethune school, he was the pioneer of the higher education for the women. So for women education, a lot of steps he has taken. Next, some of the people that you need to know, that is Jagannath Shankar Seth Murkute. Nothing too much about him, just to know, because if you're getting this option in a question, then why not, let's read about him. He was the founder of the school society and the native school of the Bombay. He involved himself in the educative things, and he himself was from the Brahmin community, but involved himself not in the priestly duties, rather engaged in the commerce and developed as a reliable businessman. That's all. He was a philanthropist and an educationist. That is Jagannath Shankar Seth. Then you have the Karsandas Mulji. He is from Gujarat, and in Gujarat he was a merchant, and in his own family he was put at periphery because of his views on the widow remarriage. He became a Varnakar schoolmaster and started a Satya Prakash, his weekly in Gujarat. So his weekly name is Satya Prakash. Satya Prakash weekly in Gujarat, in which he attacked what he perceived to be the immoralities of the Maharaja and hereditary priest of the Pushti Marg Vaishnavism. Chaliye. Again, not too much important, but just to keep all these things in mind. Okay. Let's start. Let's do a few more questions here. Okay. So the answer of this question is Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar. Okay. So he was the one who Widow Remarriage Act and 35 Girls School. Next question is, who among the following is called Lok Hitvadi? Lok Hitvadi. So who among Keshav Chandra Sen, Mahatma Phule, Ishwar Vidyasagar and Gopal Hari Deshmukh? You can see the same question on the similar lines. You may know everything about Keshav Chandra Sen because we have discussed him in detail. Then we know about Mahatma Phule, everything, Ishwar Vidyasagar, but we have not read about the Gopal Hari Deshmukh. And these are the situation that you will encounter in your prelims. That may be all the options, you know everything about the above three options, but you don't know about the fourth option. And this similar thing happened in 2020 paper as well. Okay. So from that regard, you can remember that this type of questions can be asked. They can ask you very obscure fact, and they'll give you four options, out of which three options are very common: Ambedkar, Gandhi, Phule, like that. So to learn is, first of all, don't be worried about seeing only the question that you don't know it. See the options. And secondly, while in your preparation, prepare in depth about these people. You know, this is expected out of you. Gopal Hari Deshmukh is known as the Lok Hitvadi. He himself belonged to the caste Brahmin, but he spoke against the caste system. He started writing articles aimed at social reform under the pen name of the Lok Hitvadi. He promoted emancipation, liberation, and the education of the women. The same ideas, wrote against child marriage, dowry, polygamy, all which were prevalent at that point of time. He enunciated certain 15 principles for bringing about religious reforms in Hindu society. That is why he named to be known as Lok Hitvadi. He leadership in founding of the Gyan Prakash, Hindu Prakash, and Lok Vidhadi periodicals in Maharashtra. Yeah, the government also appointed him as a small judge in the Ahmedabad, and then he retired and he did him all these good things. Okay. So, for example, if you get a question, you can be asked certain details about him, 3 to 4 details you will be given, and you can be asked to identify that who is this person. तो इसको भी download the PDF and revise it. Just read it once or twice. That's all you need to do. Nothing more than that. So answer is Gopal Hari Deshmukh. More importantly, you need to read more details about these people, which we have discussed in detail. But these are the people that they are the reformers, but the visibility of such reformers is relatively less. So in that regard, you can skip out. Which of the following statements are correct about Raja Ram Mohan Roy? He condemned polygamy and the many other reforms of the subjugation of the women. He condemned polygamy and other form of subjugation of the women. He opened a Vedanta college. He opposed to idolatry and found Upanishads as the basis of the true Hinduism. You can pause the video and try the answer. We have discussed in detail about the Raja Ram Mohan Roy. He condemned polygamy and many other forms of subjugation of the women. He opened a Vedanta college. He was opposed to idolatry and found Upanishads as the basis of the true Hinduism. Which of the select the correct answer using the following code. Yes. So all the three statements basically are correct. He condemned polygamy and many forms of subjugation. Yes. He opened a Vedanta school 1825. We have discussed that. Then he was opposed to idolatry and found Upanishad the basis of true Hinduism. Yes. He was in the favor of monotheism. Next question is something about Ishwar Vidyasagar again. That's why I told you I'll get you so many questions that don't have to worry a lot. Just revise it again and again. That's all. Which of the following statement is or are correct? It was due to Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar's active mobilization of support that widow remarriage act was passed. Yes, we have seen that. With the help of the Bethune, Ishwar Vidyasagar set up many schools devoted to the girl child. Keshav Chandra Sen took the activities of the Brahmo Samaj beyond Bengal into UP, Punjab, Madras, and Bombay. So three statements about the Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar. Okay, so it's an easy question. First statement is right. Second statement is also right. With the help of the Bithune, he established. And third is Keshav Chandra Sen took up the activity of the Brahmo Samaj. Yes, we have seen that he was the one who has taken who has been instrumental in improving the popularity of the Brahmo Samaj. So Ishushan Vidyasagar was an active proponent of the education of the girl child, believed that lack of education was the cause of their problem. With the help of an Englishman, that is Bethune, he set up many colleges devoted to the, especially to the girl child. He forcefully attacked the child marriage and polygamy. With his support, Widow Remarriage Act was passed, and he himself, being a role model, he arranged such marriages. His personal example, when his son Narayan also married a widow. Big task, hai na? Role modeling. And the third statement we have seen. So all the three statements are fine. Let us see the next question. Which of the following statements is incorrect about the Arya Samaj? So for Arya Samaj, which of the following statements are incorrect? Arya Samaj opposed the conversions of Hindus to Islam, Christianity, and therefore advocated the reconversion of the recent converts to Hinduism. Arya Samaj advocated greater use of Hindi in Devanagari script. Arya Samaj led a prolonged movement against the untouchability and forwarded dilution of the caste distinctions. Pause the video and try to answer the question. So Arya Samaj we have discussed in detail. Arya Samaj, for example, was a whole as a whole opposed to the conversion of Hindu to Islam and Christianity, and therefore advocated the reconversion of the recent converts, which they called as the Shuddhi movement. Okay. They advocated the greater use of the Hindi in the Devanagari script. In 1890s, Arya Samaj also raised the issue of the cow slaughter and formed a Gau Raksha Gau Rakshani Sabha, the cow protection society for the protection of the cows. And I've told you this cow movement traces history from the only this Arya Samaj movement. They led a prolonged movement against the untouchability and advocated the dilution of the caste distinction. Then we have discussed that how after the death of the Dayanand Saraswati, the divisions have came between the Mahatma party or the Gurukul party versus the college party or the cultural party. The other party, led by the Lala Hansraj, Lala Lajpat Rai, pointed out, was a reformer who believed that this is a new information. Dayanand was a reformer, not a rishi or a sadhu, while the other people believed that he was some kind of a rishi or a sadhu, kind of a god kind of distinctions were given by this relatively more orthodox section of the Arya Samaj, which was led by the Swami Shraddhanand. Okay? Chalo. So the answer is all the three statements are correct, and thus the answer will be none of them. So Arya Samaj opposed the conversion of Hindu to Islam. Yes. Advocated the greater use of Hindi. Yes. Prolonged movement against the untouchability. Yes. So all the three statements are correct. Let's the last question. A lot of questions we have discussed today. Which of the following statement is correct about the Sir Syed Ahmad Khan? Sir Syed Ahmad Khan called for the study of the European science and technology. He formed British India Association. He pointed out that there was no fundamental contradiction between the natural science and the Quran. Now, even in this question, let us see. If you know about whatever we have read about the Syed Ahmad Khan, we know that first statement is right. Yes, he called for the study of the European science and technology, Western ideas, Western thought, Western education. And then, yes, he said that there is no distinction between the Quran and the natural sciences, and they need to be interpreted in the modern light of the reason. The second statement we have not read. And these are the situation you are going to encounter in your exam. But if you see only 1 and 3 option is, if you say 1, okay, correct, 1 and 3, all the options are getting only in the D option. And hence you will select the D option. Even if you don't know the second one, but you know that that's right because that's the only possible options. And a lot of times UPSC does frame options like that, so that you are rattled if you see the second option. I have prepared everything with respect to Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, but I forgot or I have not read. For example, from the source which I am preparing, I have not prepared the second question. Then you become rattled. Ki, Arey bhai, ab kya ho gaya? What to do? But if you see the options, the first thing is seeing the question, don't get rattled. उसे डरना नहीं है. You don't have to be fearful. You will try to extract maximum out of a question कि भाई मुझे कितना आता है, how much information I have and how much I can get it right, है ना? So from that perspective. So Sir Syed Ahmad Khan called for the study of the European science and technology in 1866. He formed the British India Association. He stayed in England for more than 1 year during the 1869 and 70. On his return, he asked his Muslim to adopt some positive features of the English society like discipline, order, efficiency, and higher level of education. He pointed out there is no fundamental contradiction between the Quran and the natural science, and the new circumstance demanded the dissemination of English language within the Islamic context. He founded this, we have 1875, Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental, which later on became the Aligarh Muslim University. In 1878, a college was started, and the non-Muslims were also enrolled. In 1886, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan founded the Muhammad Anglo-Oriental Educational Conference as well. And then one important thing is also that British India Association he also formed. Must be written somewhere. Let me see. He formed, yes, 1866. He formed the British India Association. Okay, so remember all these things, right? So the answer is Syed Ahmad Khan. Answer is 1, 2, 3. Now that's the end of the uh, first part of your discussion. But now let's come to the discussion, that is theme 4. First of all, the question is education in India. Why they need to provide education to India? We have discussed about the education, right? We have discussed in detail about the education. For example, we have read about 1813 Act. We have read about the Anglicist and Orientalist controversy. And till then we have read, right? Today we'll read in detail about the education in India. But the first question is that why education in India? You see, there are a lot of stakeholders in this process. First of all, the British themselves. Britishers also want the Indians to be educated. Why is it so? Because they want the the petty officials, basically. If they want the people, because the cost economize the administration. If they want a very smooth administration, or they want the administration which is cost efficient, they cannot bring people from England to India, because that involves a lot of cost, their logistics, their holidays, and so many things. And plus they have to pay them very just price. As compared to them, the Indians won't ask for a lot of money, and they will be helpful. Plus they will also create allies in the form of the Indians, isn't it? So it will create, first thing is that, so first of all, economize the administration. Secondly, what is the idea? That these educated Indians will follow the British values. We will include with them the British values. So they will like the British clothes, British perfumes, British things that are coming from the industrial revolution from the British. So it will automatically create a good market for them. Thirdly, when they'll read about the British education, everything about British, they in a way kind of justify, okay, that's fine. If the British will be there, they will help us to civilize. So it will give a good moral high hand, moral high moral support to the British rule in India. That okay, fine, we are ruling because we are tend to civilize, and there are, see, these Indians are liking it. So these are the causes given by the Britishers, or these were the reasons for the Britishers. Now there were Indians as well. For example, all the socio-cultural reforms we have read till now, Ishwachand Vidyasagar, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, all these people were trying ki bhai, educate Indians. Indian needs to be educated in English. They needs to be educated in the modern language. If they want to enlighten, if they want to gain wisdom, if they want to gain the modern ideas, they need to have these ideas, and thus they need to be educated in English. So the Indians needs to be given the English education. There were one more factor of the missionaries. They also wanted ki bhai, these people should be given the English language, because when they realize that English is good, then they'll realize Christianity is good, then they'll have more numbers. Yesterday only, in the last session only, we were discussing about the religion and the number figure. You know, the more numbers that you grow, your religion becomes important, because religion is something which really binds people together. And if you have a very huge number, you became yourself as a very big pressure group. So every religion wants to increase its number. In fact, if you will go, these ISKCON people also come to, for example, in my college, they used to come and they used to talk to us about so much about Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Yeah, that's fine. Within the fold of Hinduism, we will be, but related to ISKCON. Let's say if I become too influenced by them, I'll be going to the ISKCON. That's the idea, and I'll add to their number. Later on, I will say I will give a part of my income to them. So this is what that increases their legitimacy and their numbers. So the education was introduced into India. Some of the objectives from the British government, some of the objectives of the enlightened Indians, some of the objectives of the Christian missionaries. British government wanted Indian political and administrative convenience. We have discussed that. So basically, economize these things. Okay. Next is educate Indians towards British India. So they will feel the uh, a signs of a pride associating themselves with the British values, British things. Next, consumer base for British products. Enlightened Indians, they want improvement of the society to the European standards. So they are comparing that why Indian societies are becoming so decadent, these caste issues, atrocities to the women, these things are there. As compared to the British society, see how modern they are and all good things. Socio-cultural regeneration of the Indian society for its political upliftment. So this, they believe that this regeneration can happen only and only if they get the modern education. So in that regard, the modern education becomes very critical. Christian missionaries, modern education will bring rationality and scientific temperament, and the rise of the Christianity will be there. Take utility weapon of the modern education for conversions. Modern education will be used as a tool of the conversions. So the numbers of the Christians will increase. So these are the reasons why the education has been introduced into the India. Now whole education you can see in the form of the phases. What is important for our prelims purpose or the mains purpose? Let us first discuss that. For the prelims purpose, you can be asked to arrange chronologically different commissions committee that will come. So prepare a chronology based commissions committee like that. Only first their names. Then secondly, from the prelims perspective, a few committee and recommendations become important. For example, Woods dispatch, a relay commission, so Hunter commission. The recommendations become important, especially if you for which purpose they have been set up. It's tricky, but they can ask you chronologically. That's high probability of question being asked in this way. Then from the mains perspective, they can ask you overall that why the education has been introduced. So the previous slide, completely one question can come. And what have been the fallouts? Take first type of that question. Second can be a factual question, that so they can want you to trace these phases from 1 to 5 like that. Let's see one by one. So phase 1 is 1750 to 1813. We have seen that this was the phase of the Orientalist. So we have discussed in detail about this phase, that this phase is about Orientalist. Okay, let me delete these annotations so that once you revise, all these annotations are not there in the PDF. So Orientalist phase is there. Second phase is there, that is the after the Orientalist, that is Orientalist Anglicist controversy will come, and they will decide that okay, Anglicist will go ahead and everything will be done in the modern English language and the modern things will be taught, not this Oriental learnings. Then Wood's dispatch will come, and then later on we will see phase by phase. Let us talk about the phase 1 very quickly. So the phase 1, as we have discussed, it's about the now the Britishers are just coming into India. They have just won Palasi, they have just won Buxar. We have all discussed that. So Orientalist phase is there. No social changes are there. Curiosity is there to read Indian religion, to read Indian culture, or curiosity is there. For example, finding the IVC and all these things. They are realizing that how big Indian culture is or how old Indian civilizational history is. So they have the institutions such as Asiatic Society of Bengal, William Jones, Calcutta Madrasa, Warren Hastings, and Jonathan Duckman. So these are the peoples they will see institution wise. In 1798, Fort William College has been set up by Lord Wellesley. In 1813, two Sanskrit colleges have been set up. So you can see a lot of efforts being taken to uh, educate Indians, or not to educate Indian, but open some institutions with respect to the Orientalist phase. No direct participation or the money wala thing is not coming into being. Okay. Now the phase 2 has come, the Charter Act of 1813. First time officially got, now the East India Company is becoming more important administratively. Now they are given money ki bhai, do something for the education of the Indians. Now they are realizing, especially when the Marathas are down, that now we are going to be the conquerors, and now we have to set up an elaborative system of the administration in India. Hence we need the people, hence we need the market. Imagine, this is also the time of the Industrial Revolution. So you also require the market, because now raw materials you are taking, but you require the market, you require the people. You cannot force people to buy things. You need to imbibe with them the values, the English values. So Committee on the Public Instructions was set up in 1823-24 on the basis of this Anglicist and Orientalist controversy. We have discussed in detail about this controversy. Then Macaulay's minutes have come finally, and they have decided that the controversy settled in the favor of the Anglicist, and the William Bentinck time, this controversy was settled. Some medical colleges have been opened. 1844, Lord Hardinge decided to give government employment to Indians educated in the English schools. So Anglo-Indians, those kind of things, not Anglo-Indians, but the Indians who are belonging to the rich classes, those who studied in the urban areas or living in the urban areas, studying in the English school, they will be given the government employment jobs. For example, we have seen Sir Syed Ahmad Khan was given the job, Raja Ram Mohan Rai was given a job, he worked in EIC, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan worked in EIC, like that. So this was the parameters of Orientalist versus Anglicist. We have seen that, right? So education vernacular, they say in English, they say that mass education needs to be there, and they say downward filtration theory. So from now on, the things that we have not discussed. So first thing that we'll discuss, that is a downward filtration theory. So the idea is very easy, downward filtration theory. So the idea is that they don't have a lot of resources to teach everyone, है ना? So they'll say that we will only open some colleges and the school. We will teach only a few people, and over the period of time, because of these people will be taught. Now the masses, these people will help up to create their own institutions. They will do something else. So the English have to work only and only on this colleges and the school, and they will be taught English. And it was believed that downward filtration theory, on the basis of downward filtration theory, they will get these education. So there was no focus on the primary education or the primary schools. Only their focus was on the top institutions. After this theory, obviously it's going to see that mass education is neglected. You have created na elite, hai na? Elite, some elites are getting the education, and the rest of the population is not getting any education at all. Illiteracy is rampant and all these things. Then comes the Charles Wood. So Charles Wood's dispatch has come, and which is known as the Magna Carta of the English education in India. Charles Wood's dispatch will come, and they say, no, this theory does not work. This theory has created the problems, and hence the Charles Wood will give a very elaborative system of the education. That is why it is known as the Magna Carta of the India's English education in India. So at the bottom most, you have the vernacular primary schools. In the primary school, everything will be taught at the village level in vernacular, their own native language. Then high schools in which Anglo and vernacular mixture will be taught. Then you have affiliated colleges where it will be taught in English. And then you will have the universities at the top where only specific things will be taught, like that. So secular government, secular English, the function of the education will be secular. No religious instructions will be given. Focus was also given, at least in the pages or at least in the letter, that female and the vocational educations will be given focus. Teacher education pe they have given the focus. So all these ideas were discussed in the Wood's dispatch. Okay, so Wood dispatch, if you see, so this was the theme. This is the overall everything. So affiliated universities at Calcutta, Bombay, and Madras. So they repudiated this downward filtration theory. They say that the British government should accept the responsibility of educating the Indians, because now they are the one who are ruling the place. Then they recommended English as a mode of instruction for higher studies and vernacular at a school level. Stresses on the female and the vocational training. Education will be secular, and recommended a system of the grant-in-aids to encourage the private enterprises. Now they will say that we won't be able to do everything by ourselves. Some private institutions, please do come, and we will give you some sort of subsidy and everything, and all you also set up your English education institutions. So this is why such fundamental shift has come, and that is why it is known as the Magna Carta of the English education. Now, if your question comes, why Wood's dispatch is known as the Magna Carta of the English education system, then you have to compare it with the previous system. What was the previous system? Previous system was the downward filtration theory, and you need to compare it with respect to that. Chalo. Next is phase 3, 1850 to 1900. So the developments can be seen. 1857 universities have been opened. The previous, what the Woods have said. Bethune school has opened, that we have discussed with Ishwachandra Vidyasagar. So JED Bethune at Calcutta has opened, powerful movement of the women. And it opened after a lot of movement for the women, especially led by the Ishwachandra Vidyasagar and all the other reformers. Agriculture Institute opened in the Pusa, Bihar. Engineering Institute at Roorkee, that is my college actually. Rapid westernization of education system run by the European headmasters and the principals, and private Indian efforts have also been increased, that okay, they will set up their own institutions, small institutions. Now after that came in 1882 and 1883, 1882-83, that is the Hunter Education Commission. Now idea is to review the process of the education, the dispatch of Woods. So after the Woods dispatch, okay, go ahead and review this process, that what is happening in the education, what do you mean, what do you see, what are the problems, and then recommend us something. So he said that schools at the level of the provinces have suffered because of the very limited resources. It has it has limited its recommendation to primary and the secondary education. So remember, Hunter education was not there for the higher education. It was not there for the higher education. Let us see some of the recommendations. First, he said that the special care should be given to the extension and the improvement of the primary education through vernacular. Okay, so more focus, more thrust should be given to the primary education. Transfer of control to the primary education to more decentralized authority, that is the district and the municipal board. He said the high school should serve two purpose. First, the literary. Second is the vocation. Vocation means this plumbing, this carpentry, and these things. So literary, they should go to the universities, otherwise they should pursue the commercial career. And the problem of the skilling in India, right? We don't put a lot of focus on the vocational training. And in the Britishers, they have put some scheme of vocational training at least there. Then female education needs to be improved. So these are the ideas given by the Hunter Commission. Hunter Commission was appointed in the time of the Lord Ripon. So this one thing also you need to keep in mind. When a particular commission is coming, you need to remember the Governor General of that time as well. So Hunter, next 2 decades saw rapid growth and expansion of the secondary and the collegiate education with the participation of the Indians. More teaching come, examining universities have come. You know, Punjab University, Allahabad University, and these universities have also come. Iconic. Allahabad University is really iconic. Then comes the phase 4, which is the one of the most important phase, in which you have the, we have not discussed the phase and the national movement, but overall you can imagine what is happening. Now Indians are looking for the freedom struggle. They are saying that we want freedom struggle. Secondly, the British administration is getting too much entangled with India, right? So a lot of entanglement is happening, coupling is happening of the British administration. Slowly and slowly, they will take up more responsibility in India. They will get more representation to the Indians slowly and slowly. And also at the same time, Indian struggle is increasing. So it is happening simultaneously, both the things. So few of the things that we have to study. First, Indian University Act of 1904, very important. Then the government resolution on the government policy, not very important. Sadler University Commission, important. Hartlock Committee, important. Then Vardhai scheme, the self efforts of the Indians. And then last, the Sargent plan of education, not very important. Just the name itself is important. Let's talk about the first one, that is Indian University Act. That came at the backdrop, or who was the Governor General at that time? That was Lord Curzon. Very reactionary, very strong Governor General or Viceroy was there. So what is the context of it? So political unrest in India, because that was the time in which the Swadeshi is brewing up. Swadeshi movement has not been taken up, but the extremists, we will discuss in the very last session of this theme, that the rise of the extremism in India is brewing up. Now they are saying, no, 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 Britishers have to leave, and all these things are happening. Private management equity, because the private management quality has been reduced, the standards is very poor. The government is watching from here, and they have given the private some authority. The government is saying, yeah, we have given you the authority, but what is happening from your universities? The universities have become the factory of the political revolutionaries. This is not done. We have to take control. Curzon said that what you are doing, these private people, whether English or Indian, they were loyalists, they were allies, but in your universities, in your factories, what is in your study centers, what is this happening? You are creating these political revolutionaries, those who are talking about the ideas of liberty, azadi, azadi, right? So the government said that we need to put extra control on the universities. So nationalists on the other hand said that the government is not doing enough for the removing the illiteracy or anything. Hence the commission was set up, and this commission name is also important, that is Relay Commission. In 1902 this commission has been set up to look into the conditions and the prospects of the universities. This commission has been set up. So now then, on the basis of the recommendation, this committee, this act has been created, that is Indian Universities Act of 1904. Some of the dimensions, the idea is very easy, that we want to increase our control on the universities. We will not let you get a lot of freedom. This is not done, that kind of thing. So universities attention should be should be there more on the studies and the research. The fellows which are given in the universities, fellow means the money, research fellows and everything. Government said that we will decrease the number of fellows. Those people are coming in our hostels and they are becoming the political revolutionary. You can compare with the current JNU issue. Then the government said we will nominate these fellows. We will see, we will screen these fellows. Those who are pro-government will give them the fellowship, not to the others. Government said we will veto university senate regulation. Now within the universities, there is an institution within the university that is known as Senate, where important decisions are taken, right? So and the government is, important decisions such as for with respect to the universities are taken. Now the government said if the Senate has passed a particular decision, we can quash it and we can make our own resolution, regulation. So the university's authority or autonomy has been reduced totally. The condition is strict for affiliations. If someone wants to be affiliated, conditions have been made strict for them. 5 lakh rupees were given for 5 years for improvement. So these are the things that is being given under the University Act. The predominant theme that you need to remember was the time. You can see Swadeshi movement is about to start the next month, 1905. And this is being happening under the leadership of Lord Curzon. And in fact, it was the more such policies of the Lord Curzon which will again infuriate the extremist. For example, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, who was not extremist, who was a moderate, himself has called it a retrograde step. It nationalists saw it an attempt to strengthen the imperialism and to sabotage the nationalist feeling. Curzon justified the greater control over the university in the name of the quality and the efficiency, but actually sought to restrict the education and to discipline the educated towards the loyalty to the government. If you want to do the fellowship, be pro-government. No, we will not allow you to use our resources or to become to get the university and using all the resources to become a revolutionary. We won't let that happen. Then comes the government resolution on the education policy 1913. So for example, simultaneously some states such as Baroda have introduced the compulsory primary education. So, and the nationalist leader also wanted governments to do something for it, that okay, at least give compulsory primary education to the Indians. But the government has refused to take up the responsibility. No, 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 we don't have the money that we will give this compulsory education to you all. Just like a prince, if the one princely state has done, that does not mean that we will do the same. We cannot do the same. But accepted the policy of removal of illiteracy and urged the provincial governments to take steps to provide free elementary education. उन्होंने कहा भाई, yes, we will remove the illiteracy and we will say okay, provincial governments, if you want to do, go ahead and do it, but we cannot promise you that we will give you compulsory free education. They say that the private efforts to be increased for this and the quality of the secondary education will be improved. University, it was decided, was to be established in each province and teaching activities of university to be encouraged. That's all. So not very important. Then comes the Sadler University Commission. So this university commissions were basically set up for the Calcutta University, but its recommendation become effective for all the general universities very quickly. So the idea was that after the 12 years, after you complete 12 years of schooling, you will be given, they said that some intermediate stage needs to be given before everyone can proceed to the universities, because everyone is not qualified to go to the universities, and also it is increasing the load on the universities itself. So we need to prepare students so that they can go to the universities. So some intermediate stage will be created. Okay, some intermediate stage will be created. Then they say some separate boards will be created for secondary education and the intermediate education for those who will take care of it. Then they said that less rigidity in framing of the university education, more autonomy should be given. University, they said, should be centralized, unitary, residential teaching, autonomous body. So university may more improvement needs to be there. For example, residential facilities needs to be there so that students can reside there as well as get taught there, like that. Female education, applied scientific and technological education, teacher training, and all these things, these verbose were given. Next is your Hartlock Committee. Now, Hartlock Committee came, this was set up by the Simon Commission. Simon Commission said that we want some recommendation on what is happening in the state of education, give us some recommendation. So they have set up this particular committee. So the idea was that the number of school and colleges have increased, but the quality and the standards have decreased. So they were set to provide the report on the development of the education. So what are the recommendations they have said? That emphasis should be there on the primary education, but no hasty expansion or compulsion in the education needs to be there. After 8th standards, the deserving should go to the high school, and the next the rest of the time ki bhai jao, do carpentry, do plumbing. Only some deserving should be given the studies further. Very interesting thought. So everyone should not be given the university education. Those who are deserving, those who are performing well, those who are studying well, they need to be given to the university education. Rest ko just go for the vocational. Improvement in the standards of the university of education. So admissions they have restricted, that not everyone can get into universities. So they have restricted the admissions into the universities. So they have reduced the admissions to the universities. Then comes the India's own Vardha scheme of basic education. Now, for example, one thing I've discussed last time and we'll discuss again. In 1937, a lot of Congress governments have been formed, right? Different Congress governments. First time, the nationalists or the freedom fighters got an opportunity to act as an executive in the state level, right? Like Yogi Adityanath or your other chief ministers. So the idea is that when they are having such nationalist putting, though they will come up with their own scheme. So this is known as the Vardha scheme. So Congress organized a national conference on the education. In the light of the committee has been formed, that is Zakir Hussain committee. It was based upon the Gandhian ideas which were released in his article The Harijan, and it has some following provision that some basic handicraft needs to be taught. So some vocational component is given. First 7 years of the schooling to be integral part of the free and compulsory. So some free and compulsory education. Teaching to be Hindi from class 2 to 6 7, and in English after 8. Ways to devise to establish connect with the community. So a sense of service needs to be created. So it was a more scheme that is more child centered and cooperative was there. So these are the few things that you need to remember with respect to Vardha scheme of things. But Congress ministry later on resigned very quickly, that they were not there in office only for 21 months. They were there in office. So nothing was done based upon this scheme of things. The last one, that is Sergeant Plan of the Education, not very important. You see when it has come 1944, obviously only the plan has come, no nothing implementation, because in 1947 we will get the independence. So Sergeant Plan was he was the educational advisor to the government, worked with the Central Advisory Board of Education. He recommended that the pre-primary education for 3 to 6 year age group, some age year group for selected children, then university course. You just read it out, nothing very important for it. So idea was that yes, within the 40 years we will create the same education attainment as there is in England, but everything was just the plan and nothing important. What just you need to remember, the name and the year in which it has come, and you also realize why is it so. Now that's the end of the session. One important topic, the last thing that we discussed, the evaluation of the British policy. That overall, if we evaluate the British policy, what they were able to achieve or what they were not able to achieve. When the British left India, the mass illiteracy was there. That means everything which was said from Woods to Sergeant Plan, it was just verbose. Nothing actually was done on the ground. Because their nature, because their purpose, the very purpose of the education with which they have set up these institutions was not to educate Indians or to enlighten the Indians, was only to serve their own self-interest. When you are doing anything just to serve your own self-interest, how can you expect to get good results, isn't it? So if you evaluate, you can divide it into four ideas. All these subheadings will really help you in your mains examination, I'm telling you. So for your mains examination, make notes like that only. So purpose was not upliftment of the Indians, but to serve the British imperialism and colonialism. So for their administration market, extending their moral authority and reconcile the Indians to the British value. The nature of the syllabus itself was not oriented towards the Indian language, Indian culture, Indian things and nothing. It was the Anglicization of India and eulogize the empire, that how good the British Empire is, how great the British Empire is, like that. The type of the education was more focused on the humanities subject rather than scientific, technological, or technical language. They were very restricted. Only a few colleges have been set up, such as college in Roorkee. Okay, so these things have been restricted. So technical language and all these things became very problem after the independence. It was really non-inclusive because education was present for upper richer class city dwellers, not for the rural and the backward areas. They were neglected. Female education, though they say that they want to do this female education, but it was also neglected. So these are the evaluation of the British policy in the education. So post independence, after we got independence, so we set up a Radhakrishnan commission, who went on to become the first vice president and the second president of India. Based upon the recommendation, a UGC has been created, which is to be replaced now, higher education institution. Then NCRT was established in 1961. IIT Act was passed, and different IITs were opened up. Indian Institutes of Management were opened up. National Education Commission has come, that is known as the Kothari Commission. Very important commission, that is the Kothari Commission. A lot of quotes given by the Kothari Commission sometimes are given in our essay paper. Then the National Education Policy has come in 1896, and we have recently come up with a recent new education policy in the 2020, based upon the K. Kasturi Ranjan panel report. In between, we also have the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act in 2002, and 2009 we have the Right to Education Act. Okay, so these were the development in the post independence, all part of your, let's say, governance, or wherever you read education in the post independence. But we are concerned with the education in the British India, right? So with this we finish our session. Let us see some mains question, and then we'll do 1 to 2 prelims question, and then we'll wrap up the session. Question for 27. Highlight the contribution of E. Ramaswamy Periyar in challenging the conservatism and instituting the socio-political reforms. So contribution of the E. Ramaswamy Periyar. Savitri Bai Phule was the first feminist of modern India. Elaborate her contributions to the cause of the women. So these are the three questions. One is related to education. British education policy was driven more by the desire to meet his imperial needs rather than a genuine concern of the educate the mass. So analyze. Try to write this question. It's a good question because based on the today's session, you can try this particular question. As I told you last time, 10 plus question, write 10 plus question and get yourself evaluated in those 10 plus question. You can send your questions to me, or you can send those questions to the institute and they will be evaluated. Let us discuss one last question. With reference to British rule in India, the downward filtration theory was used in the context of which of the following? Army, police reform, health and education. Very easy question. It was used in the context of the, you can read it out. It was used in the context of the education. Okay? It's a very easy question. So with this, we finish our today's session. Today, we talked about the beginning of the modern nationalism. We have not talked about the idea of nationalism as of yet, but we are setting the stones for the next session. So today we talked about the development of the education. Very important is the idea of that prelims and mains perspective. For both perspective, today's session was important. For prelims perspective, names, commission, a few of their recommendation, but more importantly, the chronology that you need to remember. The chronology is a very important part of this discussion. Okay? So with this, we finish our today's session. See you in the next session, where we talk about the development of the press, and also we'll talk about the nationalism per se. Chale. See you in the next session. Bye-bye.